I had a dream. Do you have a spare dream meaning book? I had it on Holy Week, but one of my social networking friends was against the atheists that were provoking the good Christians these holy days and requested to let her enjoy them. Her request was absolutely correct, even though I am against them all the days of the year and not for the reasons you imagine. But let's keep that for another time. The dream I had was the following. A bunch of angels had taken on the role of a postman. A lovely morning. Sounds good. One of them knocked on the door of a rosy cheeks gentleman, who at that time was having his milk with his wife while eating fresh chocolate croissants. When this sweet man opened the door, the angel gave him an invitation. What is it about? The gentleman asked. It's an invitation to a conference, the angel replied. Will I be the lecturer? The gentleman asked again, not paying particular attention to the wings of the angel. It is a dream. I can say whatever I want. The details are written in the invitation, the angel answered politely. I am just the messenger. The gentleman closed the door and went back to finish his breakfast. The same invitation was received by many others who, strangely enough, performed the same ministry. They were theologians, speaking from the pulpit of their doctrines churches. All together represented the following religious groups: Orthodoxy, Catholicism, Protestants, Calvinists, Anglicans, Lutheranists, Jehovah's Witnesses, and so many others. A total of 41 representatives according to Wikipedia. But there were a lot of rooms in the hotel they would gather, all with great views, so there was no problem. You may ask, what the heck is this dream about? Well, these are holidays, so are the dreams I have. Don't you? So I found myself in the hotel, checking the proceedings of the conference that its theme had already leaked, and it was about finding the right doctrine. Their disagreements had begun upon good morning. I stood and listened to them talking as they entered the big hall. No, only God speaks with the Holy Spirit, one said. What are you saying? Christ can too, the other replied. Why can't I have musical instruments in my church? The third asked. And then this big guy at the door stopped me. Do you have an invitation? He asked. Do I need one? I asked back. He did not reply. He just pointed at the door. There was nothing I could do about it, so I went out to the garden. I thought I could find someone there who knew more. And there, in a corner, caressing the yard, was an old priest. So I approached him, and I asked him about the conference. It is a pre-session, he replied while shoveling the garden. What do you mean? I asked. The same conference is done by the Muslims, the Buddhists, and, if I am not mistaken, by some other Easterns as well. Oh, and one by the atheists. The atheists? I asked, in a very puzzled face. What do they have to do with God? Everything they have to say is based on Him. Christians claim, God said this, God said that. Atheists claim, non-God said this, non-God said that. Once more, God is invoked. I looked at him. Why are you looking at me like this? He asked. What do you think, Grandpa? He turned to me angrily and with high spiritual strength and audacity said, That's what I was told. That's what I tell. They told me to look after the orchard, so that's what I do. It's not my job to look behind the words. I don't have the time. If you want, feel free to investigate. As I turned to walk away, I remembered what he mentioned earlier. A pre-session, you said? Yes. The conference will be held after the conclusions are drawn. The representatives of each idea will be accountable to the 5. That is where the final conclusion will be made. Who are the 5? I will tell you, but you sound like a journalist. They have their own conference, he said and laughed. I looked at him, eagerly waiting for his answer. So, it is Christ, Buddha, Muhammad. I think Confucius will represent a dozen others, and the last one is Marx. How so? I have no idea. Anyway, they never get to do the conference. They always stuck to the precession. I laughed. Why are you laughing? He asked. I guess I thought at least one would have the answers, I replied. You have a long way ahead, he said in disappointment. The only truth is that no one knows, and if people realized that the world would be a better place, not even these holy days. What about these days? When Christ went to his crucifixion, he didn't take the lamb down so that his followers would eat it. If he saw them doing that, he would beat them up. From one hand, crying and weeping in the churches, and on the other, preparing the chargril for a feast. Does this sound right? I admit I didn't know what to say. I sat down on a rock and took out my tobacco bag to make myself a cigarette. Do you mind? I asked. I do if you don't give me one, he replied. My wife doesn't let me smoke, so I rarely get to enjoy one. He took the tobacco bag and prepared one with his rough hands. I will tell you something only because it is a dream, and I know that dreams are not taken into serious consideration. So, this is what I have figured out. Birth would be of no worth if it weren't followed by baptism. So would baptism if the secret dinner did not occur, and all these would be of no value if crucifixion and resurrection weren't right after. Imagine a resurrection on its own. Can I write down what you just told me? You're in a hurry. I did not finish, he said with a tone of disappointment. But isn't resurrection the final step? I asked him. Of course not. The last step comes afterward, and you must know that all the steps are necessary to go any further. This is what the Arabi says. Who is he? I asked again. He is God with non-God, all in one. I smiled and continued with my questions. So what is the last step? The last step of the mysteries, son, is that of ascension. After that you are entitled to take a breath. Do you understand?